5G Adventure Outdoors, sharing the outdoors with family and friends.
Hey everybody, it's 5G Adventure Outdoors. Today we're going to show you our hatch install on our Lifetime Tamarack. I ordered the 6-inch hatch off of Amazon. It came with the dry bag and a gasket, and it also came with screws. So we're going to get started by tracing where we want the hatch to be, where we need to make our cuts.
Alright, so now I am drilling out with a 1/2-inch drill bit. I'm going to make 4 holes where I'll be using a jigsaw here in just a little bit to cut out the hatch. This was a relatively easy process. You just kind of got to make sure you watch your line, and you want to cut right on the line the best you can. You don't want to make the hole too big, but you also don't want to make it too small. So just try to cut right on the line the best you can.
And now we have our opening for our hatch. So now we're going to mark our screw holes for the hatch.
I just kind of eyeballed it here. There's a crease that runs down this hatch, and I just put one of the screw holes on each side of the hatch, right in the center of that crease. Just kind of centered it up the best I could, and then I drilled pilot holes because I didn't want to run the risk of stripping out the plastic, so I pre-drilled the holes. And because of the crease, where it is there's a little bit of a gap in the front and the back. As you guys will see, we used bolts on the front and the back of the hatch, and then the others we used the screws that were provided.
So at this point we're going to put screws on either side of the hatch just to hold it in place before we put the bolts in the front and the back.
Always make sure that you're using either just regular screwdriver, or if you use a drill or an impact, that you are being very easy with it, because putting in stainless steel screws into plastic, it is quite easy to strip it out. So a lot of times I will use my impact and put them in loosely, and then I will tighten them down with a screwdriver. So now is where I'm putting in the bolts to try to pull that up a little bit to get it watertight the best that we can.
Because we're using bolts, we can actually drill this hole out a little bit larger because we don't have to worry about stripping out the plastic. So we're going to drill these holes out a little bit larger so that the bolts will fit in fairly easy.
Make sure you don't have any debris left from drilling it out, because if there's something stuck in there, it could create a problem, moisture getting down inside the kayak, and we don't want that.
Now this part is a little bit awkward because there's quite a big lip on the hatch itself, so being able to reach around that lip and get the washer and the bolt on is a little bit difficult. It takes a little bit of agility, as you'll see in just a moment. So what I had to do here was basically just set the washer on my fingertips and the nut, and just kind of had to feel for the end of the bolt and very gently get the washer and the nut onto the bolt, and then hold it in place while he tightened it up with a screwdriver. Was about the easiest way we figured to do this.
These are Phillips head bolts and screws that we're using, and the bolts actually had a 5/16 nut on the back side. So if you guys are using the same thing, that's the socket or wrench that you will be using.
So once again, I'm just placing the washer and the nut on my fingers and trying to hold them in place on top of the bolts. The length of the bolts were a little bit, they didn't stick through very far, so you did have to kind of push down the plastic to get the nut started on the bolt. this idea did work really well in drawing the plastic of the kayak up, so there is not a gap anymore. There was quite a gap where the kayak, because the front of the Tamarack isn't flat, so using the bolts on the front and the back drew that plastic up really well, so that was a really snug fit for the hatch.
And now you'll see me again, I'm using my impact drill just to lightly put them in, get them started, and then I will come back with a Phillips head screwdriver and tighten everything up to make sure it's all snug. And after snugging up all the screws, just double checking the bolts, and I was able to tighten them up just a little bit more.
And that's our install for our 6-inch hatch on the Lifetime Tamarack kayak. If you guys like this video, you can give it a like, hit the subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it.